Howdy y'all, I am Ice Gold, and today I'm making a follow-up video actually to a video that I made a little bit ago, about a couple weeks or so at this point. And in that video I talked about how hard spellements were to get, and just sort of how that's a problem, because in a lot of ways spellements matter a lot as you get closer and closer to endgame. And of course they're not required to progress through, usual PvE content, but if you do want to, I guess, dive a little deeper, if you want to, stay and keep playing Wiz after you finish Selenopolis, or I guess Darkmoor later down the line this year, but after you finish those, then it's going to be, like, do you want to do PvP? Do you want to get into raids? Do you want to do challenge modes? And all of that. And spellements matter a lot in that. And I did a poll recently, about 10 days ago, as I record this, 11 days as you've seen this, but when I asked y'all, do you think spellements are too hard to obtain in Wiz? And this is a really alarming number, because I was expecting maybe a few more people to say no, but And another major thing about this poll that I did was the fact that it got 691 responses. That is just shy of 700. That is the most I have ever gotten in terms of responses to a poll that I've ever done. And I've done things like Ratbeard approval rating polls. So that's when it's like this is something that people really care a lot about. This is a real hot button issue that's affecting casual players too. It's like casual players, they might see these spellements and they'll be like, hey, I want to get Iron Sultan leveled up. I want to either do more damage with my Iron Sultan, or I want to do this cool little effect where it puts a minus 40% chromatic damage aura on the target, like a weakness aura for 40%. I think that's pretty cool. I want to do that, but they quickly figure out that no, you can't really do that, because the issue with it is that sometimes, and I say sometimes because the devs have gotten worse about this lately, sometimes you are able to get enough spellements on a spell to at least upgrade it to tier 2 through just questing through a world. Like, for example, what even would be a good example? I think something like, where's my Kraken? Here. So Kraken. You will probably get enough spellements to upgrade this to tier 2 at some point when you finish. I think it's Marleybone, I want to say, is when you get Kraken spellements. So once you finish Marleybone, you'll have enough spellements to get it to this second tier, where the high end of it will go up by 10 and the low end will go up by 20. So it's a bit more of a consistent spell at that point. But it's like, you see this, you beat Meowiarty, you're like, oh hey, I can upgrade my Kraken now, and maybe use it in Mushu, except not really, because you get Stormzilla very quickly afterward. Or no, I think it's Triton first. Yeah, I think it's Triton first, but even still, you can be like, oh, Kraken, pretty neat. Let me try upgrading this, and then you see oh, there's a lot more, and you're like, oh, this 80% base accuracy spell that does 605 damage at max tier. I think that's pretty cool. I want to do that. I want to get that. Problem is, it's real hard to farm for that, and you, at least if you finish Marleybone and you're still in the first arc, then you still have that option. But as you progress, and let's take Stormlord for example. Where is that? Stormlord. So you get these spellements in Celestia, and these spells, they're staples in your wizard's journey. So it's like, you get Kraken, that's all well and good, and you get it in a timely manner. But then you get to these Arc 2 spells, and not every quest is going to give you a spellement. And then, you'll be lucky to get a 15 damage upgrade on this card, or at least unlocking the bottom path, but you don't use this in PvE, not ever. So, it's like eventually you'll get up here, and you'll get 15 damage a 15 damage increase for getting through all of Celestia. And Celestia is not exactly a short world. It's only, I think, marginally shorter than Dragonspire, which is exceedingly long. Or maybe it's even longer. I can't remember if it's shorter or longer than Dragonspire, but point being, they're similar in length, and both of them are very long worlds. It's like you're stuck sitting in the Crustacean Empire for moons. it's like it's a whole thing. So it's like Celestia, you know, it's not that long, but you know, it is still a longer world in total amounts of quests. So you get up here, and it's like, you know, you only get an extra 15 damage for that. So yeah, I mean, that poll that I did, where I asked y'all, do y'all think spellements are too hard to obtain in Wiz? And I really should have said this earlier when I started to talk about it, but immediately got sidetracked by like Kraken and Stormlord, is the fact that it was 88 points underwater for the no option. Like 94% of people said yes, spellements were too hard to get, to like in contrast to the 6% of people saying no. So that is an 88 percentage point delta, and I think that speaks a lot to how like casual players do care about spellements. It's like casual players, you know, they'll see this, they'll be like, oh, you know, I finished Celestia, let me see how many spellements I can get for Stormlord, and the answer ends up being like, I don't know, 75 to 80, something like that, just enough to get it to tier 2. And it's like you can see like, oh, you know, I can get an extra 50 base damage on this spell. That really matters as damage starts to ramp up a bunch, as well as the fact is, you know, you're in Celestia, so you're getting Sun Enchants that also add more damage. So it's like you'll be like, hey, you know, maybe I want to get a lot more damage on this spell. And yeah, it's just a lot of casual players want spellements to be more accessible. And I mean, that is also just on top of every single more hardcore player thinking like, oh, you know, these should be more accessible and easier to get. And speaking of, I'm actually in Port Arrow today because I have my Elemental Retriever pet, because Raging Bull is about to gain a lot of relevance in the PvP meta. So I am just hoping I can get more of these, more of these, and honestly less of these because they're no PvP. I don't know why they still have that, but yeah. Oh, and Silence Elements are still bugged, by the way. So super cool. So yeah, I mean, I think at least a good place to start is to get these spells that you get along the main storyline up to tier 5 just through regular questing. I think really ramping up the spellements, like just the amount of spellements you get from quests, either that, or honestly this is more preferable, but reducing the overall cost that it'll take to get a spell from tier 1 to tier 5. Because getting a spell from tier 1 to tier 5 is 800, screw it, not 800 and whatever spellements, but it is 685. That's where the 8 comes from. That's what I was starting to say and then mix myself up. But 685 spellements to get it from here all the way to here. And then you have these other spells that can only be unlocked by, you know, what is it? Just by spellements. It's like you used to be able to craft a bunch of spells, but now you have like newer pack spells like Revolutionary Strike, that, you know, you might look at this and be like, hey, you know, I want to get this. And then you'll see that you have to not only farm the absolute worst gold key boss ever spawned, thank you Cam Hephaestus for that awful experience, but you will need an extra 35 to unlock the spell. So it's like you get 35 spellements here, and then you need a total of 720 to get it to max tier. So that is unlocked to max tier is 720. Tier 1 to tier 5 is 685, naturally. So I think that a very good place to start is to at least let the players get their spellements up all the way to tier 5 through just questing. Because, I mean, here I am, you know, still at 176 out of 305 King Artorias spellements. Here I am at, you know, 123 out of 305 Storm Owl spellements. And both of those cards actually drop from these cantrip chests that I keep opening here in Port Arrow, but I mean, I've farmed extensively, by the way, and you can see, like, the Iron Sultan that I was looking at earlier, this card right here, this also drops from the Port Arrow wooden chest with Elemental Retriever. So this is as far as I've gotten with, like, months of farming. And, of course, I haven't been super hardcore about it. It's been on and off. But the fact that I'm still only, like, about halfway to tier 4 on Iron Sultan, when I've been, like, farming on and off since the spring update when these spells dropped, that's a little ridiculous in my opinion. So I think that getting these spells all the way to max tier, or at least, you know, like, you unlock the spell and then it, like, through questing, either gives you 685 spellements, or, and this is a big or it's, like, the cost to, like, the total cost goes from that 685 number down to something much more reasonable, like 300. I think that's not too much to ask. I think 300 spellements is still grindy, but it's not absolutely horrendous. I mean, it is the difference between tier 4 and tier 5. Like, tier 4 to tier 5 costs 305 spellements, as y'all saw with things like Dark and Stormy, which I am apparently 2 spellements off of. I will have to raid again for that, so that's sick. But yeah, you know, it's like, you look at this, it's like going from here to here would be at least ideal, because this is about 40-ish% of the total cost from taking it from tier 1 to tier 5. It's like, I think that if the number were to move from 685 down to 300, that would be a major boon. And then say, you know, 25 spellments instead of the 35 to unlock it. Just that way it's only 325 total, and then, you know, it's not that horrendous anymore. So that's mostly what I'm getting at. Just you know, making these spellements much more accessible, making the like the main storyline spells much easier to obtain. Like, I think if this were to go down to 300, and, you know, you get Dark and Stormy for free, and then it's only 300 to get all the way to tier 5. Like, say for example, it's 50 to get to tier 2. Actually, no, that feels like a lot. Let's say it's 40 to get to tier 2. Then say it's 60 to get to tier 3. And then, so that's 100, then let's say it would be 100, right? Or, screw it, 90, rather, to get to tier 4, and then 110 to get to tier 5. That would all add up to 300, and that would be perfectly fine in my opinion. I think that would be much better, but also that you could get a lot of these spellements just from questing. Like, I think, because a world like Chrysalis has 277 quests, so imagine if pretty much, like, every single quest in Chrysalis gave a King Artorias spellement for your school. And things like the Ghost Dog fight quest would give, like, I don't know, 15 King Art spellements. And then the Morganth quest would give 15 King Art spellements. Balor the Broken Fang would give 15 King Art spellements. Cravenly in Tyrian Gorge might give 15 spellements. Just these some milestones that'll get you some more, but in the end you still reach max tier, because, you know, these bottom paths can be appealing to other schools. There was, like, my first life PvP game that I uploaded since coming back to that school was against a myth who used Iron Sultan, and I think, you know, like, if that guy's Storm had tier 5 Iron Sultan by default, if he wanted to unlock Iron Sultan on other schools, then he could do so by, you know, farming cantrip chests, farming, you know, Elemental Retriever on wooden chests. You know, it's like, that guy could definitely do it if he really wanted to use Iron Sultan on a myth. So that, I think, is going to be a good place to start. I think just reducing it to, you know, like 40 to tier 2, 60 to tier 3, 90 to tier 4, maybe like 110 to tier 5, I don't know. Or even something like 40, 60, 80, 110. Or, I don't know, 85, 115. just to sort of keep things consistent. But I think that would be the #1 solution to this. I think that is something we should get, because, I mean, look at Sirens. I have not farmed a single Avalon cantrip chest or, like, wooden chest with Elemental Retriever ever in my life. These have just come from like the times that I was doing the Crying Sky raid after that the Spellement update dropped, which, you know, wasn't a lot, I will say. So yeah, because I did most of my raids before 2024 spring update. But yeah, it's like, I do think that that is the number one solution. Just making the spellements, making these spells much easier to... where is this wooden chest? Just so I can show y'all. It's over here. Okay. So yeah, just making the spellements either, like, just make them much easier to obtain. That's most of the thing that I'm getting at, because the community at large overwhelmingly believes that spellements are too hard to get in their current state. And I think just all of these staple spells, you know, things like, of course, Stormlord, Tempest is inevitably going to become a Beast Moon spellement, so that's going to be its own whole thing. But, you know, Stormlord, if you could get to tier 5 just with these, like, the main quests from Celestia, that would be cool. If you could get Bunyip's Rage all the way to tier 5, once that drops. It's like the way that they're doing these, by the way, is they're, like, the new spells, they're just making these all, like, they'll put out the first 3 tiers in that update, and then they'll add a 4th tier after the following content update. So you can basically just tell, when I look at Tree of Strife, this was the Nova spell, it got its 5th tier after Selenopolis. Bunyip, of course, got its 4th tier after Selenopolis, and then, of course, Heket is the most recent spell, and it will get its 4th tier in Darkmoor. And then Bunyip will get a tier 5 in Darkmoor, which is going to be a pain in the ass to grind for. So, that's, yeah, that's going to be, I guess, on the agenda. So I think now is the time to make sure this issue doesn't compound even more than it already has been. I think now is, without a doubt, the best time for the KingsIsle developers to, you know, look back at spellements and decide, hey, you know, what if we made spells like Berry Surprise 25 to unlock? It's like, because this is a lore spell, you get this from, like, Spirit of Ignorance boss, the Gold Key boss, so it's like 25 spellements to unlock spells that you don't already unlock along the main quest line, like Lightning Bats you get for free, but then, you know, 40 spellements to get it to tier 2, which you can get pretty quickly through questing, like after, I guess, X amount of quests. maybe like 20% of the quests through the world would get you to that 40 number, and then it would go to 60 for tier 3, 85 for tier 4, and then 115 for tier 5. Just so that way it all adds up to a nice round number at 300 rather than this awkward 685. So, yeah, I think that's the best solution. I hope the devs can really give this some thought, because genuinely, the fact that a poll with 700 responses was that lopsided in favor of saying, yes, spellements are too hard to get, the solutions are there. It's just all on the devs to actually implement them, which I think that they can do. I'm not even sure if money is even something that they're after with this. I don't even think, because it's like, of course, buying the packs, you know, that is the best way to level up every spellement that is not from Arc 1, by the way. But that, honestly, I don't even think that was their goal. I don't think their goal with spellements was money related. I mean, in the beginning, it certainly was, with how Troll Spellement was back in 2020. But after the 2022 summer update that introduced the Arc 1 spellements, I don't think money was their goal. I think that, like, a grind was their goal, that sort of deal. But we're at a point where the grind is just too aggressive, and I think people really just want spellements to become much easier to access, and for people to really feel like they're upgrading their spells as they progress through a world, because this is the Storm experience that I'm on right now. Like, upgrading by 15 damage is going to look different if you're on an ice. Like, that goes from 570 to 580. That is an increase of 10 damage from tier 1 to tier 2. So, I think if KingsIsle were to make it so that, of course, you get these spellements much easier, it's only 300, and you get all of them from the main story quest line for the spells that you regularly unlock, Perfect. That's all we asked from you. That's all that we need, and I think that is a solution that the community will be happy with. So that, I think, is going to wrap up. So thank you all for watching. I've been IceGold. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave like 50 comments for the algorithm. My Discord is down in the description if you want to chat with me some more, and I will see y'all later.